How you going there, Charlie?
God, there's a lot of Charlies in that sentence.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing. We're searching for Charlie Owen.
Yeah, well, if you do a search for Charlie Owen, there's a lot that comes up.
Right, of course. Yeah. All right, and but there's only one real Charlie Owen, and I'm talking to him on the line at the moment.
Actually, strange enough, there isn't. There's another Charlie. There's two other Charlie Owens who play music, and they're both young girls, one in Australia and one from Canada. And I remember getting a message from a radio station in Canada after I put out that album on the Town is on, saying, "Oh, I love this record. I've been playing the bejesus out of it. Hopefully, you can make it over sometime." And how did they get my record over in Canada? And that's when I sussed out there's a young alt country singer in Canada called Charlie Owen.
All
And
right.
I have since communicated with her and said, I hope that there's not any trouble. And we both thought it was incredibly funny. So it's kind of a nice story in itself. And
Right.
she's really good too.
Yeah, because there's a few other acts. I mean, because X had their counterpoint in LA as well, so there's would have been a bit of confusion with those two bands as well. But we're not confused about who Charlie Owen is here in Sydney. You're one of the legends of Australian music, and I know that you originally I've read that you originally well, obviously you grew up listening to rock and pop music as we all did, but one of your early musical influences was Django Reinhardt and Charlie and of course John Coltrane, of course, which is sort of for a young person a bit different sort of music, listening to different musical tastes, obviously.
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, my family were all my mum and my sisters were all artists. And my sister and I were great fans of music. I was pretty young, and she was in this thing called the World Record Club, which was a thing in the 70s where you'd get a pamphlet once a month, and you'd tick off which records you wanted, and they'd send them to you. And we'd sit up in her bedroom and listen, on a crackly old stereo. We got Slade Alive and, the early Zeppelin, Deep Purple, all, the classic 70s things sort of before they were in shops and stuff. And I was sort of fascinated by the art of music rather than being a fan of rock music, because my dad was a piano player and he used to play swing tunes like, Ain't She Sweet or Charles Stone, Blind in Cara, all that sort of stuff. So with that sort of music in mind and then this sort of wild rock music, I discovered in the middle there was Coltrane, who played sort of standards but was wild, and Hendrix to a degree, and the Stooges. So I was had one foot in the jazz world and one foot in the rock world, and it was the art of music that I really liked.
Yeah. Well, it was all very, very intense sort of type of music, isn't it? So it's sort of, I guess they were Coltrane's got the same sort of intensity as rock music, and with people like the Stooges, of course, and bands like and MC5, who are of course influenced by him as well. You mentioned Slade Alive, because Slade were actually the first band that I ever really got into, and I remember the record clubs too, because I never actually joined them, but I remember I used to read a lot of horror comics, and you'd see like in the centre the pages that have all the American, things that you'd never ever hear on the radio. And it used to intrigue me, and I remember actually there was a radio show on was now Radio National these days, but 2BL in those days. Chris Winter used to produce it, where he was playing a few of that sort of stuff. So I got to hear a bit of that sort of alternative music myself when I was around 10 or 11, something like that. But
Yeah.
it was.
I was in Canberra. This was sort of really before I moved to Brisbane. I was in Canberra, and we had a station called Double X there, which still goes now. But it's now much more community. In those days, it was really alternative rock, and there was a DJ called Wheels who would find all these what were then obscurities and play them, and it was a tremendous sort of growing experience. And I'd play in Canberra at these coffee shops, and Canberra in those days was a really fantastic place, really. My first ever gig there was National Marijuana Day. and it's in Grima Place, which is the square in the centre of Canberra. And they set up a stage, and me and my friend Paul Brown had been playing a few gigs at these sort of coffee houses, and they asked us to play, and we were first on, and we got up and we played Arlo Guthrie's Coming Into Los Angeles, bringing in a couple of keys.
Appropriately, yeah.
Song. And I remember this guy coming up to me with about a 9-inch long joint and smoked it on stage. And anyway, it was all fun and games until the next morning the paper came out, and my mum was reading the paper and said, "A cloud of marijuana smoke hung over Grima Place yesterday, the National Marijuana Party." And my mum said, "Charlie, isn't that where you did your first gig?" And I said, "Yes, Mum, it is actually." And she said, "Oh, well, good on you. You know, cheers."
Oh, cool.
You know, but so I'm very fond of those early days of getting into music. But then I moved to Brisbane, and I didn't really get Brisbane. Mum and I didn't really like it, and I just sat in my room and played guitar. So up until that point, I wasn't really planning on having a future in music. It was art. But after I started playing guitar in my bedroom in Brisbane for so long, we fell into the theatre and some jazz groups, and I just kept going with it.
Great. Yeah, well, and I suppose that with your current show, Searching for Charlie Owens, you talk about these sort of anecdotes and things like that, or?
Well, yeah, what I'm going to do is, because there's this varied history, a bit like, say you played a New Christ song before. The New Christ came about after I'd been playing jazz in Brisbane. I moved down to Sydney and got involved with different musicians, Lewis Tillett and a bunch of other people, and I made a compilation record, and Rob Younger was producing it, and he was putting together a new version of the New Christ. And I said, "Oh, well, I don't want to do it sort of two-guitar blitzkrieg, bit like Birdman and New Race and all that." I said, "I'll do it, but I'll just a single guitar, a la the Stooges, because I've been playing jazz and I figured that was the way I'd do it better." And they sort of ummed and ahed and said, "Okay, let's do it that way." And that's how the New Christ, that period of the New Christ came about, with just the single guitar. And in fact, on Distemper, one of the songs called The March, I had been playing in Brisbane in my jazz group, and I just twisted it into a rock form instead of a jazz form, you know. So yes, I'll be playing songs that I've written with people who we no longer play together or they've passed away. In fact, the whole show started with a lot of my friends dying, and I thought, oh, who's going to play that song I wrote with them if I don't? And so that's how it started. So it sort of started from a dark place, but the more I did it, the more I realised this is the beauty of music, is its legacy is a great thing, not a sad thing.
Mm.
So started celebrating these songs and celebrating the lives and how these songs were born, and talk about them, and you know.
Yeah, well, of course, the New Christ were already established when you joined them, and of course Rob Younger continues. We've had a pretty stable lineup in the last few years, but I know it's had over the years it's had a lot of lineup changes. But I know that the lineup with your New Christ is, most people consider to be one of the the classic period, really.
Well, we did do a lot of work, you know, and a lot of touring in Europe, and very popular in France and Germany and Spain, and did a lot. And that album Distemper really did put the name The New Christ around, even though the singles Born Out of Time and Like a Curse are tremendous and really important singles in the early 80s of Australian rock. But Distemper was such a great body of work that it really stands up still. You know, people still, Mark Lanigan, before he died, put it as one of his top 10 albums of all time, and it sort of crops up as an influential album all over the place. And I had a great time in that band, and Rob, incredible performer, incredible to play with. And I was just one of those sort of people that wanted to keep doing different things in my life, and it was a hard thing to do, to to leave, but I did because I just wanted to do other things as well.
Right.
But I have no animosity towards any of the guys, and I wish them all the best all the time.
Yeah. And a person that you, of course, been longly professional association with is Tex Perkins. Of course, you've worked with Tex, Don, and Charlie, and of course, also you produced his album Dark Horses, on which you played, and of course with the Beasts of Bourbon, and currently the Beasts, which I've seen too. I saw the Beasts on their last tour, and of course, you just recently lost the drummer,
James.
Yeah, James Baker, of course. Yeah. And
well, he did really well, considering, you know, in fact, the doctor said to him, keep rocking because it's keeping you alive.
Right.
Which was, you know...
Good advice.
He was a tremendous guy, tremendous personality, and a tremendous feel in his music. And, of course, Tex and I, we go back a long way, and in fact, we were in Brisbane at the same time, probably going to a lot of the same gigs, but didn't know each other until... We didn't meet until the New Christ and the Beast of Bourbon played a double headliner at the 2 nights in Oslo, or Stockholm, I think. And we headlined one night, and they headlined the other night. And that was the night Tex and I really met, really. And Spencer and I hung out those 2 nights and had a really great time. So when Kim left, Spencer was like, "Oh, let's get Charlie," you know. And the Tex on Charlie thing came around because Tex had been asked to do something with Don Walker, and Tex knew that I'd done some work with Don, and he said, let's do that, but only if Charlie's involved. And so that's how it became Tex on Charlie, like a singer, a songwriter, a musician was the idea behind it. Right. Playing our take on country music, and that's how. And yeah, Tex and I have done all sorts of things. I played on numerous records. I played all the instruments on songs and stuff like that. You know, we just build them up, and we had a really great period of a number of years when he was living in Melbourne, and just when he moved up north, and we did lots and lots of work together all over the place, and that's a very fruitful time, really. Lots and lots of records and performances and TV and tours, and in fact, some of my favourite times have been playing just Tex and I, doing the duet, and I've always really loved that format, the 2-piece. It feels like a flock of birds, right? When you see them all turn suddenly at the same time, you can do that with 2 musicians. You can suddenly sort of twist and turn and move like a flock of birds. Amazing feeling.
Okay. Yeah, well, of course, and Don Walker was in, of course, Cold Chisel, one of the very successful bands, and of course, you're also a member of the Divinals at one stage, which probably about the most commercially successful band you've been in. And would you find there's much difference from playing in a so-called alternative underground band, or as opposed to a mainstream band? I mean, apart from the pay, I suppose.
Apart from the pay. Well, it was interesting. That was the period when I was in the New Christ. Was really... Well, I was in Divinals for a long, long time. I was actually, apart from Mark and Chrissy, the longest standing member of that band. But I loved playing, and Chrissy and I became great, great friends, and we did a lot of gigs, just the 2 of us as well. And I did a tour with her and an orchestra. But what was interesting was, when I was in that band, it'd be like, we'd be sitting around after gigs, or, you know, having a drink or whatever, and they'd be going, "Oh, so you just got back from Europe?" And I said, "Yeah, we've been travelling around in a van, playing every night in these clubs in Germany and France and Switzerland, and eating incredible food. People are so fantastic." And they'd be going, "Oh, that must be amazing." Then I'd go to the New Christ gig and be sitting around having a drink afterwards, and they go, "Oh, wow, so you've been touring the States in a big bus, and there's, you know, playing these great places. That must be amazing." So both sides of on the other side, the grass was greener. But of course, they're just 2 different entities. But I did have one foot in each grave, so to speak.
Well, I suppose since like bands like Nirvana sort of broke through, there's not really there was a change. The what was it, dichotomy or whatever. I mean, like it changed the like it was not so much apparent what was underground and what was mainstream. And although in Australia, I suppose it's been a bit like that because we had bands like the Johnnies and Hoodoo Gurus, of course, who were
Really did, apart from the sound of the music, having sort of the grungy music on the radio was, and in fact there was lots of grungy music before then.
of course.
These eras changing. Well, what really happened is the major labels started buying the indie labels. And it happened in Australia too, like Red Eye got bought by Polygram or Universal and that sort of thing. So all those bands were suddenly owned by major labels, and the indie bands didn't like the way the major labels treated them, and the major labels didn't like the way the indie bands wanted to sound indie, and so it was a disaster. You know, it's a real shame that there isn't really the two sides, because they are different, and you don't get such unique long-term bands like Died Pretty Died Pretty always, I remember Brett Meyer saying to me once, we've been trying to sell out for years. But of course, it's the fact that they were on an indie label that supported their unique style that made them unique. And the same with Rob Younger and Radio Birdman and all that. They kept their unique sound, whereas major labels tended to want bands to be more genre definable.
Mm-hmm.
Get what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like again, like it's good music's. You can't really define it in that way anyway. I suppose in a way, like I mean, you get a lot of on the charts. You get a lot. Always got good music. You've always got a lot of crap as well. Like I mean, like on the I'm talking on top 40 type music. No,
yeah. There always has. It's always been like that. There's always, and there's room for it all, really. That's why some of the punk bands would make fun of Cliff Richard, but at the same time, there's plenty of room for Cliff Richard just as much as the Sex Pistols. You know what I mean? So I don't really have a narrow view on either what's good or bad. I just like doing what I do.
Yeah.
Doing it.
Yeah, and also, of course, you usually get associated. Most people consider you like as a guitarist. So, of course, you're a multi-instrumentalist. I know you played keyboards with the New Christ and with
I play lots of keyboards all over the thing. Every time I make a record, I end up playing some keyboards on them with different people. I played Lewis played some keyboards on that Distemper, and I played some others. On the Text on Charlie records, on the Text records, I played lots of keyboards, and of course I've made a couple of records with the singer from God, Joel Silbisher, under the name Tendrils, and I played lots of keyboards on those things too, and so in fact I think I learned the piano before I learned guitar as a kid. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, you're saying your father was a piano player, so I suppose.
Yeah, I always had a piano around the house, so I would have started tinkling on that. I think that sister that I spoke about, Mary, who since passed away, God bless her, she got learned to play guitar in 3 easy steps kind of thing. Did the 3 easy steps, couldn't do it, and put the guitar downstairs in the basement. And I went down there, found the guitar, and went, I'll try these 3 easy steps. And I picked it up, and that was it.
Okay. All right. And so and of course another person you do a lot of work with is Louis Tillett, who of course has passed away as well.
Yeah, dear Lewis. Yeah, I play a song. I do. Yeah, I talk about Lewis in my shows. We did lots together. Did lots of touring around Europe, just the two of us. Lewis was particularly popular in Greece. And I remember one show we did, just him and I, in Crete. We played, they just absolutely adored the music we were doing. And after the concert, one person came up to us and said, "Oh, thank you so much for coming to Crete. You have done more for the culture of Crete than anyone has done for hundreds of years." Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, the Greek culture is pretty strong, so that's one mighty fine compliment.
Okay, all right, yeah, and of course, yeah, I played that Paul Kelly song, Charlie Owen slide guitar, which is a tribute to you. I remember you saying when you first heard that, you thought they were taking the piss out of you.
I did. Well, we'd done a gig up. Morris Frawley and myself was supported Paul Kelly and Spencer P. Jones somewhere, and we were waiting for the crew to pack up, so we were just sitting around backstage playing the songs, and he played a bit of it, and I said, "Oh, come on, Paul, don't make fun of me." And then a few days later, he ran and I said, "No, it's actually you're comfortable. I'm going to release this song. I really like it, And it's more a story about him than me. But it was very, very, and we've been friends for a long time, Paul and I, and of course we made a record together called Death's Stateless Night, which we played at a friend's funeral. Well, first we played at Chrissy Amplett's funeral together, and then we played at another friend's funeral, and we both realised we've both played at different people's funerals who we both know, and we decided, there's a certain way you play at funerals. Make a record of all the songs we've played at different people's funerals. So they're generally not sad, the songs you play. They're generally sort of poignant rather than sad. And we made a record called Death's Stateless Night, recorded it here at my house, and then did a tour around Australia at churches. And it was very successful, and then went to the States, did a tour in Canada and America, and and it was funny, I remember being on the plane sitting next to a university professor, and she was saying to me, "My God, you must think we're crazy. This guy, Donald Trump, have you heard of him?" That's how long ago it was. And I said, we said, "Oh yeah, that's not going to happen, surely. Surely America's not." And she goes, "Oh, I don't know. Most of America's pretty fucking stupid," to use language. So now we live in it.
All right. Well, just before we go to talk about your show, we're just saying also about another aspect of your career is your solo albums, which the last one, which more sort of ambient sort of type sound. So you're going back more to the experimental type feel of music.
Well, that last record, that came out. My wife and I have been running an art gallery in St Kilda for the last 23 years. Recently just got sold on, very sadly. But when we first started doing that, what I used to do is I had a little studio there. And rather than playing records or music in speakers into the gallery space, I would sit in my studio and make ambient soundscapes to go with the art. But I wouldn't tell people I was doing this. I'd just do it. It was like fun for me sitting there. And as more people would come, I'd maybe, I'd change it and, Anyway, I used to record all this stuff. And then it came to make a record, and I thought, Tony Cohen and I were sitting down listening to some of this stuff, and he said, let's make a record and let's put your music with your ambient soundscapes. So if we go back to that first song, that last song you played before we started chatting, On the Town, that starts off with the dobro and the piano and drums. I played all those things. Then it goes into that sort of reversed guitar with the electronica in the background. That electronica comes from the studio at my gallery. So we put it all together, and the whole record is done like that, with bits and pieces put together with live sort of, I guess you'd call it, Americana kind of instrumentation, mixed with this sort of soundscape stuff. And it was a great project, actually. And Tony and I thought, what we'll do is, let's not release it. Let's make it really hard to get, because we weren't big fans of you can find anything on the internet. We thought, let's just make this really hard to get. But of course, it made it so hard to get, no one got it. So I just have to. You can only get them at my gigs.
Well, that's.
I think it's on. I think people have downloaded maybe onto Bandcamp, but it's better to have a disc because they sound better. All those sites on the internet, they squish up the music so much. It really doesn't sound the same. we've all objected to CDs when they took over from vinyl, but they are vastly better than listening to music off the internet.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, like we had with vinyl. I suppose it had sorts because they had the scratches and warps and things like that, but they had a lot more sort of warmer sound coming off it. Though, I mean, I think any medium is. I've always found like some music's more important than the medium to my mind anyway. So I'll personally get it however I can get it basically, but yeah.
That's what I mean. That's why CDs kind of do hold up really. Like vinyl is great if you've got top end gear and pristine records.
Yeah.
But CDs basically, if you've got really good speakers, they'll sound good.
Yeah. But anyway, how about we've got your show, Searching for Charlie Owen. It's on Saturday, August the 2nd in Sydney at Petersham Bolo, and you got other dates as well.
Yeah, the Friday night is at Smith's Alternative in Canberra.
Canberra, yeah.
Sunday afternoon, early evening at Woy Woy, the Lincoln Pin. And if anybody's listening to this and driving down Melbourne Way, I'm playing the Thursday beforehand at Euroa at the Seven Winds Hotel, or whatever it's called. I think it's Seven Creeks Hotel. And this Saturday I'm playing in Melbourne. Well, not in Melbourne, in Main Ridge on the Mornings of Peninsula at the Pig and Whistle. So I've got a little run together. And then in about a month's time, I'm doing Adelaide. But, of course, in the middle, the Beats are doing a show.
Of course, yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, they're always great shows, too.
The Black Milk album.
Yeah.
And that should be fun.
Oh, great. Yeah, I caught the Beats last time they were in Sydney. Anyway, hey, we'll better leave it there then, Charlie. And it's been great chatting to you. And, I caught the one at the Mosh Pit, which was great. And I'll get along to the Petersham as well. And, as all our listeners should get along there as well.
Yeah, absolutely great to talk to you, Kevin.
No, it's great talking to you too. All right, Charlie, we'll leave it there. I'm going to play another track from you. I'm going to play For Ages, which features Chrissy Amphlett on it.
Yes, it does.
All right.
In fact, I think this is perhaps the last recording she released recording she did.
Wow.
We were great friends, and it was sort of written by my wife, and Chrissy said, I'll sing that. She came down the studio and sang it, and dear Chrissy.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, there'll be a Chrissy story in the show.
I'm sure. Good. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, well, thanks a lot. It's been great chatting to you, Charlie, and I'll catch up with you at the Petersham Bolo on August the 2nd.
Awesome. Okay.
No worries, mate. Ta.
Cheers.